and different. Boom.
Different.
There's live
Okay.
there.
And then I'm gonna lead off with
Wait for
our screen
YouTube,
fun.
which is
All
pretty
right.
funny.
Let's see. Let me get this up so we can monitor the chat. Da-da-da-da.
Nothing yet on the YouTube side.
It's taking its good old time today for some reason.
Yeah. I love how it'll start streaming technically, but it won't show up on YouTube for a while. So
Um,
this conversation will show up on YouTube before it actually
oh,
shows up on YouTube.
well, I expect that. There we go. There we go.
We're up. Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna turn that off. Okay, there we are. Let me get my chat up. Let's see who's here. Turn this on. Okay. I'm gonna lead off with this awesome let me see. I gotta share the right screen here. Hold on. Okay. All right, screen one. Okay. All right. You see that?
Yes, loud and clear.
So today we had the sun wake us up today, and it's probably gonna suppress the sound on this, but it was screaming from start to be. It's still screaming. So today we're gonna be talking about all of its various screams and what that means for us.
So many
But
screens.
I thought it was very appropriate for this. So okay, we're gonna stop sharing. And I'm going to turn this off. Okay, because I can't only handle so much of that. I can't put
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
10 hours worth of screaming sun. But yeah, so yesterday we had our regular stream, but today we have another one because we figured this event was a big enough event that we needed to talk about it. So
Yes.
you get double the trouble, whoever's here. So hello. If you have any questions, we have the chat up. We'll try to answer them as we get going. But I'm going to hand this over to Christian because I think we're going to talk about what happened on the sun first, right? Yeah, the flares and all that fun stuff. So
Yep.
take it over.
So I'll go over to mine in that case, and we're looking at. Actually, I'm going to show up a couple things just while we're here. First off, we already went over the X7 flare. That was the other day. I did not load the imagery from that side. Didn't honestly think it was necessary since we kind of just went over it. But
Yeah.
just know for those that weren't really quite aware somehow, if you're still not aware, there was another X7 from this same region just a few days ago. The CME is on its way. It should be a hit for almost certainty, but at the same time, it's a side glance more so because of the hindrance it had moving west. So it's going to be a side hit from that one. However, we then had another one, and that was an X90, actually, just pretty much 90 on the dot,
Yeah.
which in this case was eruptive as well, though it was impulsive. First, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of confused with the terminology. We almost always use impulsive as if there's no CME associated. Impulsive just means that the time frame that the flare took off was too short generally to really do anything. Usually, I'm sure there's a formal definition for it, but I usually say within 5 to 10 minutes, the flare recedes pretty quickly. However, this was an X9. That means there's a ton of energy in it regardless. So even though it was only peaking the X class range for about 19 minutes, it still had a CME associated with it. However, that hinders the speed significantly. So I have people coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you real quick.
Okay. No, oh, I was going to add too the other thing you can look at if a flare has a CME or not is we saw the type 2 and type 4 radio burst signatures with this, and that's usually indicative that there was something that erupted out of a flare. At least it gives you a clue to look at, when we start getting more and more images in to see if that was indeed the case, and it was here. So yeah, it was eruptive, even though it was impulsive. And yeah. So we wanted to clarify that because we did get the questions on that about it being gradual or impulsive. And like Christian said, typically impulsive flares just don't give us the time to be eruptive, but this is a different case, so here we are. But yeah, it should be interesting. And this one was in the center of the disc. So unlike the other day with the X7 that was more on the limb, this one's center. So this one definitely gets our attention because it's in a better position for us to get something from regardless. So it's yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm trying, we'll wait for him to get back because he has control of all this stuff. but long story short is we have a CME to work with. We also have multiple other CMEs that we haven't really talked about. We haven't gotten to because the thing has been flaring all day. It was flaring yesterday. It's got a bunch of M flare, like there was an M3, a couple other ones. So it's kind of gonna be a mess. Obviously the big events get the more attention. And that could be a bad thing to some degree because then you forget about these littler ones that can just sneak in there and like, you know, make things a little bit bigger than they should have been. So we're kind of watching that as well. Because we had another, what was it, an M7, not
M6.
yeah, not too long ago that was off the
Yep.
western limb. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a rocky few days.
Well said. On that note, I can actually show the video, which I have a way more imagery loaded than is needed for this part, but I also wanted to see some of the later eruptions. But so at X9 and everything you said, I mean, you pretty much covered it. If it's impulsive, it doesn't mean it's necessarily not eruptive. In this case, we have it both. So we do have a CME from it, but it's just not a fast one, not a very great one in that sense. But it is coming right behind the other one, which helps a little bit as far as clearing out the solar wind in between. So we've got that eruption. Now I'll be honest, this has all been happening so quickly, I have not been able to see what the other eruptions were. I at least have some imagery if we want to go ahead and just run through a quick, let's do a 3 sun blend here. Actually, we don't need 131 for that. I can just let this run on a loop,
Yeah,
at least for
I mean it's
this is
kind of
the last roughly 10 hours of activity for the sun. So we have the X9 on there. There's quite a bit of activity over here on the west limb as well. There's, I believe, an eruption, and then one on the east limb even, which we can see some post-eruptive arcades here as the loops start reforming over the sun there. Looks like there was one there too, and one there. Now, it is kind of not as up-to-date either, so this doesn't get the last, I want to say, 2 hours. Now, CMEs, I don't have Lasgo imagery past, it looks like. Actually, let's see if they've updated this yet. We're at midnight UTC. There was a delay on Lasgo that was not allowing me to update any imagery from, I want to say, quite a while. 1700, maybe? Oh, we've got some extra ones, though. Sweet. So let's see how this looks. And this is running differential. That's one CME. That's one on the west or the east limb. There's another one. Okay. So it captures at least the CME and then the one that might side glance us on the west limb, it looks like.
yeah.
But yeah, so we have really, I guess the main part of this, at least with modeling, we had to look at is 2 CMEs, specifically both from the X classes. There are a few minor ones as well that are going to sideswipe or at least have some sort of CME interactions. So we're kind of at another cluster train wreck of CMEs,
I
not
like that
similar.
clustered
Yeah,
train wreck.
cluster train. Well, I have to leave out a certain word for that, so we can't go that far. But it's going to be something, it won't be anywhere near similar to May 10th. And I'm just going to put that out there now. I have very little confidence we're going to see another G5 level storm, even if we get up there a little bit. I just don't see it happening unless we get some more eruptions coming from either of the current active sunspot regions, which is going to be in my next point.
Yeah, I was gonna say bring that up because they are angry.
Yes.
Angry.
So we have
Angry.
3842, which is the source of all of our recent ones. This is looking at the actual white light imagery of the sunspot. I've overlaid the magnetogram on top of it as well. This shows the polarities of them, black being negative, white being positive. I will say the activity that's causing 3842 to go off is starting to separate a little bit. So there's a chance we might see that stop a little bit. Actually, I kind of like seeing the evolution of it as it goes on.
It's really kind of cool. It's
You can
like
kind of see the sunspots move and morph and the
there's like
whole
there's more emotion in there than you think.
mm-hmm.
Like when you start watching it, there's like
I'll take the magnetogram
blobs.
out so we can just see the sunspots themselves. But the idea is this group here was very close to this region here, except for the last 2 flares. It has been separating more to the north. Now it actually looks like it's being pushed further inward into the sunspot group, which makes sense because it is if I'm not mistaken, that is a positive region. Yes, and positive in the southern hemisphere wants to go down, whereas the negative sides wants to go up. So there's a chance this could clash if it continues, and then more flaring can also continue with it. We also have a new contender. I want to say 3844, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's
This
some
has a fairly complex region all through here. Lots of deltas. So we're going to see that one go as well. And then we have a little bit forming here. I can't remember the naming for this region myself, but it's also fairly potent from the looks of it, or gaining some potency.
That's the one that
Um,
flared earlier, right? The one on that far side.
I think
I'll be
so,
honest, I'm not
but
sure.
Yeah,
Tanya?
um, it may have been. It's been pretty busy.
yeah.
So we're losing track of which flare is which. It would make sense if it was this region more based on the complexity. However, the leading region on this is fairly good, so it's very possible it's that one as well. It could also be interactions between the groups. They are close enough to where it might
Yeah.
be something like that. I'm not too concerned about this region in the north. There's a little bridge here. I don't know why that positive bridge is in between. There's no Umbra that's positive there, so we're looking at just a negative Umbra and a negative Umbra. They don't really have any form, so I'm not too worried about this spot at the moment, but that's another one to look forward to. And then the big one that came over the eastern limb here recently as well. It is pretty giant for a sunspot. That's massive, really. But I don't think I see any complexity in it as it is. All of the sunspot umbras look like they're within the same polarity, but it's still hard to tell because we're getting kind of a limbing artifact from it being so close to the edge. So in about 24 hours, we should know. So the moral of the story here is this: we still have game players here. We very much could see another big-ish flare over the next 24 hours. And if we get at least one more decent CME, we could be seeing a fairly decent event with a moderate probability for even G4 storming, let's say. For now, we're going to keep it at the G3 level. NOAA has also maintained that watch, so we will say G3 possibilities over the next couple of days. What that means for Aurora is completely separate because the geomagnetic storm classification has no relevance to the Aurora. So I will refrain from making any Aurora forecasts simply because we can't make those forecasts until we see what it actually does when the CME comes by. And then the last part I want to really show is the view line that Sarah came up with because it's absolutely brilliant.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, because you've probably been seeing all these things on the internet today with all well, yesterday it was the red donut, and today it's the view
Lots of the red
line
donuts. And now
everywhere.
there's new, like I've seen at least 3 or 4 new ones since then. And a
Yeah.
lot of them are off. I've seen what are G3 level ones where the Aurora view line is the standard G5 level. I don't know, but this is all the one that matters. Aurora is visible depending on data. The end.
The end. And they're right here.
So share this
Works
forecast
every
because this is
day.
100%.
Yep.
Yep, 100% accurate every day.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard. Well, like Vincent put up something yesterday too because this it's a great example of why Aurora is separate from geomagnetic storming, like the forecast, because G1 level event has been photographed in California. That when you think about it, like that doesn't make sense. But you get these little bursts of energy from the magnetosphere that's independent of what else is going on. And that's kind of the point that we're trying to drive home here is we don't really know exactly what's going to happen with the aurora until the data gets here and how it responds to that data.
Yep.
So it's hard. And I know everybody likes to hype things up. I mean, the thing, one of the things that everybody's been doing today is kind of damage control with the hype train.
So much.
Because I've been seeing so much like correlating X flares to big, like it's going to be a giant aurora. That's just not the case. Like even this X flare, like we've seen more faster CMEs from lesser
Yep.
events.
Absolutely.
It's just something you can't correlate, and a lot of comparisons to the May event, which we can't do until after. We just can't because there's so many things that make an event what it is, like depending on the strength, the IMF coming in, the polarity that's coming in. You can't make those comparisons until after. So
Yep.
it's
The
great to be
Aurora view line.
excited. We all are, but we have to, take it down a step and be like, put your realistic shoes on and be like, hey, calm down. It's gonna be
And
okay.
to be clear, none of us like being the hype police.
Yeah, it's
I don't want to
fine.
not, I don't want to de-excite people over this. This is a pretty exciting, potentially good event, especially for higher and middle latitudes. I can't imagine it's going to be anything disappointing for them until we see the data at least. But the
Yeah.
idea is we don't want to hype this up to May 10th because every event, no matter what happens now, is equivalent to May 10th in the media. And unfortunately, with 90% of the populace being unaware of the in-depth solar wind data and geomagnetic data, which why would they have that info? People are just falling for it and thinking they need to travel and be ready. And blah, blah, blah. It's not going to be the case. I would, again, not expect this to go past G3, G4 at the current levels at most. And what that means for Aurora would be, again, something separate. We could have a decent geomagnetic storm and we get some southern latitude Aurora for a while. We could get some no Aurora, just only higher latitudes. It could be in between. It could last for a few minutes. No idea. View lines are pointless. So media articles, any sharing on Facebook, ignore them all. I'm going to just go ahead and be blunt and just say it that way.
So shall we move on to the factual forecasts that are out there?
Yes, and if we want to get some models, I'll pass it over to whichever one of you wants to go through that.
I think Tanya had them up, so I'll pass them over.
Which one are we taking first? The official model?
Yeah, let's do that
Or
one.
Let's
Let's
do
do
all
the
of them.
let's see. Well, let's start with shall we? The model that came out first is actually M2M model. So this is a combined model. It's several CMEs that have been in the forecast even before the X9 flare that fired technically yesterday in UTC time. But it is coming and it's not a direct hit. It actually is more of a flank hit, and that's exactly what we have seen from this region all along. It's kind of favoring southeast in terms of
Yeah,
propagation. That's where it's been going from probably the very first flare and very first CME.
agreed.
And it basically maintained that aim. It's kind of shooting at the east limb and towards south. And it is coming at some point over the next couple of days because it's two events. They're closely spaced together, relatively closely spaced together. So the first one might clear enough for a little faster propagation. And I'm gonna have to look at the ETA time real quick. So this is scheduled to arrive around the 4th, 20. So probably earlier midday tomorrow into day after tomorrow. So 4th to the 5th, because this model has a 7-hour margin of error on either side. In reality, it performs with 10 to 12 margin of error. So, and they are also going with KP7, so same G3 level storming that other agencies have been talking about. All right, so.
And that's the official. Well, no, that's the MTM one, right?
That's M2M.
Yeah,
They
MTM.
came out with the model faster because they do have a lot of assets to protect and warn. So they often post the model faster, and sometimes it can err. It can overpredict. They're all meant to overpredict the impact because they need to forewarn a lot of industries. Going to probably Met Office as an official model
Okay.
next. And this one is NOAA. I have so many models open, it's not even funny anymore. Which one is it?
What model? Which woman?
Which model? I need to close some of the windows, so give me one sec. Talk about something else.
There's at least 4 of them. Oh, we can easily keep going. I mean, at this point, we got to the view line. Really, what I want to emphasize more now is still Aurora forecasts. I mean, I'm just going to keep pushing that point, honestly. And I
Do
know
it.
most people are going to be here for Aurora forecasts. Really, the general populace, all they care about is when am I going to see my Aurora or can I see it? Which is a fair question to ask. But as we've hopefully explained decently thoroughly in the last probably 5 minutes, is you can't do that yet. And again, that's why all these KP forecast maps, that's why when you see meteorologists posting that you're going to have a KP 5, 6, 7 at XYZ time, those aren't going to be reliable. They're not meant for Aurora forecasts. They're meant for the other industries that rely on knowing when geomagnetic activity is occurring that could affect, say, power grids or radio communications or anything like that. So at the
Yeah.
moment, we do not have a good Aurora forecast. We will not know if it's in Ohio, Minnesota, any other state until we see those CMEs pass our data source over in L1 Lagrange point, 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. We usually get about 45 to 60 minutes of a warning. That is when we will have a decent idea as to what the Aurora will be. Anything before that is just pure guesstimation based off of not reliable data. I will
So
probably rant about that one more time.
I guess I should add too, because I was seeing in the chat about something about speed, because this one wasn't particularly all that fast either.
No, not at all.
So,
They were very slow CMEs for the sake of at least the X flares that we were seeing, which again goes with the correlation of CME speed is not directly related to the X-ray brightness. And keeping in mind to everyone else as well, the X-ray flux, that is literally just measuring how bright the region is getting, or rather how bright the sun is, total in X-rays. That can and does have some sort of correlation with energy. And obviously it takes more energy to be brighter, but it does not have a direct correlation with the energy it put into a CME eruption. So
bingo.
disclaimers.
All right. So I'm
Okay.
going to go with two models at the same time, actually. So,
Oh,
Cool.
yeah, this is going to be fun. So, am I actually sharing anything?
yes, you are.
Yes,
All
it looks
right.
like, is that
So
NOAA model?
this is, yes, that is NOAA model. And that's why it was a little bit confusing because Met Office, which is meteorology office at UK, who also monitors and forecasts space weather, they're using a different approach. So they do post NOAA model. And again, there are multiple CMEs there but the two major ones that we're tracking, those are the X7 and X9 flare. Um, but this is where things get very interesting because what they do is they run the same model several times. Typically, it's, I think, 12. And they post them separately. So each one of that model requires a manual speed measurement that's entered into the model. And you get this distribution of how things can go if the
Messy.
speed is slightly different. So it could be literally anywhere from very, very, very mild impact, which is somewhere over here, to something really major.
Yeah.
And depends on how those CMEs interact with each other and what they bring. So they don't really monitor, they don't forecast KP as much, and it's next to impossible to do with Ensemble. With several models, you can, but you get sort of a mess of different KP distributions, so it's not particularly helpful. But what you care about in reality is when is it going to come and what's the level of uncertainty in arrival. So that gives you different times and gives you an arrival window when you should be prepared that something might actually happen.
And you can't
Is
see
it
right
is
there.
it accurate? No. Is it better? Is it a better picture of what things could be like and what degree of uncertainty actually goes into that forecast? Absolutely. So that's what you get with 12. You can actually model up to a lot more. So I'm going to switch to a different screen and show you my favorite forecast. You know which one.
I know which
Smells like we're
one.
getting to the huxt.
Yeah.
Yes, we are getting into the Huxt. So Huxt is using the same map of the solar wind at about 21.5 solar radii. That's kind of the starting point where you lose a lot of different interactions with a corona. So CME and corona kind of stop talking to each other and CME flies off. It starts to kind of fly off with more or less consistent speed that it's going to sort of kind of maintain until it bumps into other things in the solar wind and starts interacting. So this is exactly what Huxt is modeling. What if CME runs into traffic on the way to Earth? And depending on the traffic speed and traffic density, you get a distribution of those arrival times and the speed of the CME. And as you can tell, because there are two, well, more than two, there are several CMEs in the forecast, there is a lot of uncertainty there. But that gives you an idea of what nights to watch, so to speak, for CME arrival. And it's, well, it's anywhere. Starting
Starting from tomorrow,
probably,
or well, the
yeah,
5th.
Yeah.
yeah, the 5th.
Starting tomorrow.
Yep. So
Oh,
starting
actually, yeah, the
starting
4th
tomorrow.
UTC. Yep.
Yep.
So tomorrow night, anywhere from tomorrow night to what, the 7th or 8th.
Mm, yeah.
Again, there is no KP modeling here. And for Aurora, KP modeling is really irrelevant because we won't know what Aurora looks like and what probability of Aurora looks like until we finally start to see the IMF. And speed is important because that gives you an idea how quickly that magnetic field will reach magnetosphere. But that's about it. After that, it's all about that magnetic interaction and waiting for magnetosphere to respond and give us the first substorm, and then maybe sit for a while and kind of chew on the magnetic field and load up again and fire off again.
Yep.
So that's what we probably going to see. And because we don't see consistency in terms of what auroral oval is doing, and we see those intermittent expansions and contractions of the auroral oval, that changes the visibility line. So visibility line that is posted everywhere, that's for max KP, pretty much from dusk to dawn, which never happens.
No.
This is not how magnetosphere works. Magnetosphere is more loading up, so the auroral oval is a little bit expanded, but not that much. And then you see huge expansion, you see the substorm, you see the beautiful color, and then it stops. It kind of goes to kind of boring and it starts to load up again. And it can do that for a few hours. We have seen it until
Yeah.
it builds up to into another substorm. So it's really more of a tide instead of the river that that model that horrible red donut is really showing.
Yeah, the red donut, not the red donut. Ah!
Nope,
And I will
don't
say
go
this
with the
matters
red
more.
donut. It doesn't work.
This matters more for middle and lower latitudes. The lower latitude you get, the more important this is to know, because that view line is going to go from not visible at all to possibly to the northern sky, or even maybe overhead in the case of May 11th, which again, I'm not sure or even confident this is going to happen again for that. But the point is, it's more important to know what you're looking at and know that it can flux and wane in that sense, because again, you could disappear entirely and you go, okay, show's over. Well, maybe it's just in recovery. Maybe it's about to do another storm. Maybe we get hit by another CME. I mean, it counts as to how far apart the two CMEs hit too. The longer apart they are, there may be different effects compared to them hitting within a few hours of each other, which is not necessarily the case here. But there's just so many ridiculously high amounts of variables involved in trying to forecast aurora that it is just simply not possible to do with any forecast and or any simple number. The KP particularly is a despised number amongst most high-end aurora chasers and space weather enthusiasts and actual the scientists, because it just does not measure things in the sense of aurora. It measures things in terms of global geomagnetic activity, which is independent of aurora. It can involve aurora, but aurora is just a side effect of this, and it has its own behaviors aside. So KP forecasts, 3-day forecasts, all of those are meant to be taken not only with a grain of salt, but with the info that you are just looking at. This day might have something. That's
Yes.
it. That is all it can tell you.
It's like a generalized, like yeah, like you're saying, it's like, okay, something might happen this day. We don't know exactly what or when. And to the point about the time too, it's like, so you could have the big hit during the day and you're not
And
going to
then you
see
get
that.
not much
So
during night. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like, so again, like that, you think about the magnetosphere, it's breathing basically. So you
I
know,
love
it
that.
expands and contracts, expands and contracts, and that's the part that we're all having issues with trying to with the forecasting, because we're just not there yet. We don't really get much warning on it. It's really like in a couple hours at most. Which for us, for people like us that live pretty far south, it's a bummer to hear that, you know. It just is, but that's what we got to work with. So you take these other forecasts like we're talking about now, and you're just like, well, okay, these days might have something. So maybe if I put myself in an area there where I could see this better for those couple of days, then you'll have a better chance, and then you can chase based on the hour lead time or whatever. And that's kind of how we approach it right now. It's still not super ideal, but it's what we have to work with.
What we
So
have. And then, of course, I think this was already mentioned, maybe, but you know, what if we do get the big CMEs? There's a chance that the orientation of that magnetic field for the CME may not even be conducive to aurora. So we could have a super big CME hit, but the magnetic field only supports Earth's magnetic field, which makes aurora even weaker.
yeah, we
So
end up getting
there's a lot.
the bumper car effect
Getting
where
yeah,
it smack, and then it just, you get like, you can get EMPs and stuff from that, but it's not going to do anything like geomagnetically for us that we want to see.
Or on the
Um,
ground.
yeah, so
yeah.
that's always a possibility too.
Yeah, geomagnetically, if we have a strong arriving IMF and fairly strong northward BZ, we still get higher latitude aurora because solar wind will find a place to connect somewhere. But
Yeah.
that's going to be limited to higher latitudes, and we'll be lucky to get a small substorm out of it toward mid latitudes, but that's going to be about it. So we could be sitting with very, very high BT and BZ is going to be taking most of it. And good luck.
Yep.
If
Yeah.
you're somewhere in
It's so
Norway
good if
or
you're Alaska
Iceland,
or
you're
Norway.
getting a show. Exactly. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just sitting looking at the data.
Oh yeah, the fun times of looking at the data.
Virtual chase, my
Data
favorite.
chasing, my
Yeah,
favorite.
my
Yeah.
favorite.
Weather, I guess next.
Yeah,
Yes.
so okay, we'll talk about weather here. Let me make sure I got all this stuff up here. I got windy.
And then while you're looking for that, do we want to do maybe stay on an extra 10 or 15 minutes and encourage people to ask questions in chat that they might want to know?
Yeah, anything they
Yeah.
might want to know.
So
Because
anyone watching, if you want to get to some questions, throw it in the chat and we'll start answering that,
this
especially
one
at the
So
end.
this
I
one's
actually
quite
see
simple.
I actually see one question there that I might want to answer before we
Okay.
get to
Oh,
weather. So different agencies will have different ETAs, and it's not unusual because depending on what you enter into the same model, what you choose as your settings in terms of background solar wind and speed of the CME will change the arrival time considerably. So that's pretty expected for different models to show different ETA. Again, margin of error when you're dealing with WSA and LIL is 10 to 12 hours in reality, even though model is set for 7 hours on either side. So that gives you a pretty significant window. We're talking about 10 to 12 hours is an entire day.
Yeah,
You
pretty
can
much.
easily drag entire flex rope through that window.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So that's what am I looking at? Okay. I wanted to bring this up because oh wow, okay. All right. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay. Anyway, so we can move on to this. Um, so okay. So you could I got the right screen, right? You see a weather map?
nope.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me hit the share button first. Okay, how about that? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I decided I'll be the bearer of bad news here. I mean, it's not all bad news. Um, but we do have a weather system too. And I gotta apologize to our friends down under because I don't have a down under weather map. It's North America, and I apologize for that. I really do. Um, but so we have some weather system that's gonna come through. We'll see if we go, I think it's on Friday into Saturday. I gotta find it. Hold on. There it is. So it's Saturday, Saturday into Sunday. We have this weather system to deal with. Um, the good thing about it is it's not all night. Um, so timing's gonna be pretty critical on this. If people in the western part of the UP, it looks like it might actually start to clear past midnight once that system passes, and then into the eastern UP. That's definitely the most problematic night is this Saturday into Sunday because of this. It looks like a low pressure system that's pulling through. Um, if this continue, the good thing is this is a multi. This is the setup is kind of a multi-day thing. So even if you miss it the one day, there's chance that it could continue on, like depending on how many CMEs that we end up getting. Because Sunday and the Monday looks pretty good for the Western UP and Minnesota and out west, basically. Let's go to Friday. Friday actually looked kind of okay. Friday into Saturday looks pretty good. You just got some high clouds to deal with, which I've that hasn't been too big of a deal. So Friday and Saturday looks good. It looks like Saturday is the problematic day for a lot of us in the Midwest. But if this ends up being something a lot bigger, anybody that's in these lower tiered or lower latitudes, it's actually looking pretty good overall. So I'm going to take it over to the smoke map because I was actually kind of surprised by this because I thought we were getting through all the smoke, but apparently you're not. And I thought it was
Ah,
a little hazy. I thought it was a little hazy today, and now I know why. Yeah, there's a little bit of orange there, so we still have smoke to contend with. Um, unfortunately. So but I don't. It's not nearly as bad as it was. A couple months ago in the summer, but. Hey, for the most part, the upper Midwest looks okay until, you start getting into Saturday. The next wave starts to move in. But it's not, I'm not seeing a lot of purple and heavy red, so I think we'll be all right. It's really when you start seeing the purple and red where I start to get a little a little worried about it. You'll just if you notice that your sky doesn't look completely clear, this is why we still got some smoke up there. Other than that, I'm it's it's not a perfect forecast, but it's not a bad one by all means. Like we've seen way worse. As long as this low pressure system moves out, um, I think we're the setup is actually pretty decent. So I know I sounded like I was gonna be like, oh, this is bad news, but it's not that bad. It definitely can be way worse. So that's what I got on weather. So I guess we'll stop this here and we can open it up to whoever wants to chit chat or if we got questions. Um
Honestly, that makes middle latitude and low latitudes look pretty good outside of that
yeah,
system.
yeah, middle latitude, low latitude. Yeah, it's so if it's something being something bigger, you guys down more in the southern latitudes might actually be set up pretty good, which is exciting.
For once, yeah. So I guess we'll
We
see.
we
Yeah,
woke up
again,
to the
now's
sun
good
screaming.
question time. If anyone wants to do questions, or we can also, I mean, give it maybe just a few more minutes and
Yeah.
conclude if necessary. The moral of the story being, don't listen to any Aurora forecasts yet. That's just no way to tell that, even though you're getting post after post after post of visibility lines. And this is not going to be May 10th or a Carrington event. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
not
this,
100% confident on the May 10th part, but I am confident that it's not going to be a Carrington event.
it's not a kill shot. It's not going to knock us into the dark ages. It's just okay. That reminds me, there was an eclipse with the
An
uh
annular eclipse.
not the with the satellite. I'm talking about it was which one was it? I can't remember, but because yeah, the satellites get eclipsed every once in a while, and you get like black frames.
Oh,
I think that may have been SDO.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's deal.
yeah.
So like that happened, and of course everybody's like, well, what are they hiding? And because that happened just as the sun started flaring again. It's like, oh, they're hiding things. But it's not the case. And we do get that. I think somebody
That's
asked
good.
earlier about the jerkiness in one of the I think it was SDO as well because they do calibrations every once in a while. So like you get frames that are just kind of out of sync with each other. Um, so they do that. It's kind of routine things you just gotta watch for. But they're not hiding anything. I promise. It's not a kill shot. We're not gonna die. The sun is just doing regular things. It has given us way worse many times over, and we've been fine. The only thing that's kind of bad right now is for anybody that's in the doing the first responding stuff in the mid-Atlantic states that are flooded. That's a problem because that the X flares happened at this morning. So the
Yep.
dawn dusk line is worse
Yeah.
too.
And
So
we've
it
been sitting, yeah, and we've been sitting at R1 for most of today too.
yeah.
So that's a major issue.
Yeah, so it'll knock out that communication line. But that's the worst of it. Like for us, it's like, we're not gonna get we're not gonna fry.
Les with a good question. Is there any particular prediction we feel is better than the rest, or do I take the average, or do we take the average of them all? I like this question.
Oh,
That's a
I
good question.
like that question too because there is actually data on that. You can't really take one prediction over another. They all have significant margin of error. Predictions from official entities that use large physics models, so that's WSA and LIL, actually have greater accuracy compared to some of the experimental models. So if you like the CME scoreboard, pick the ones that have established track record. They do perform better. On average, again, they will be off on some CMEs, and about third of all CMEs that are posted on the scoreboard never make it to Earth. Again, the stakeholders are different. They're not Aurora chasers. They're industry. So this modeling is done to forewarn them about what's coming in terms of inclement state weather. And the more modeling you look at, so if you average all the predictions, it starts to behave pretty much the same way as any other forecast. So averaging doesn't really work. You get the same prediction with the same margin of error as any other prediction when you average all the prediction on the scoreboard. Do not average it. Look at it as more of ensemble. So look at the different times that have been predicted and definitely try to appreciate the uncertainty of the forecast, but aim for the window where most models are showing the ETA and to even take that with a grain of salt because that may be off depending on what went into the model. So none of the models perform any better. Larger models tend to perform better on the average, and the average for all the forecasts performs just like any other forecast.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a roundabout way. Yeah.
So
Go
that's, I
with
mean, honestly, that's,
probabilistic forecasts.
we'll
Just
go, I
just
go with Huxt, at least just because of the
yeah,
ensemble ability.
exactly.
That's more runs equals higher probability of knowing what the uncertainty is for real.
I guess a good comparison is the spaghetti models with hurricanes, kind
That's,
of.
I always forget to compare that.
Yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
because it's the same type of deal, like it's like here if you input this if you input this into that, then the whole track of the hurricane changes. So like it could go over here, here, and I don't in that particular model, I don't think you can average that together either. It's an ensemble.
Yeah.
So
You have to
yeah,
know the uncertainties. That's a
yeah.
whole part of the track and the forecast is knowing where it could be at X time.
So it's kind of similar to that. All right, let's see. What do we got here? Links to various massive. I guess what
Yeah.
I'll link it. I'll link when I do the description of this, I'll put the different links in. So I will get that.
For anyone new coming in as well, again, just to reemphasize the forecasting part of it. So Aurora itself, the actual northern lights cannot be predicted past the time frame where we see the eruption past our satellite about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. You're not, unfortunately, going to get anything accurate. So any news articles, KP charts, 3-day forecast, there's a lot of them, especially the images with the view lines. There's no way to know if the aurora is going to be seen on a given night until that night. We only have about a 45-minute to an hour warning that we have the likelihood increase to see aurora at middle and lower latitudes.
And then
So
on
we basically have to wait to find out.
and on that note, I got asked about will it be stronger than what's coming tonight or tomorrow? Because we got somebody in Ohio, like you,
Yes.
Christine.
Yeah.
Um,
No, this
and
is Ohio Northern Lights and astronomical events. I'm assuming we got some people from here, so I'm thankful that I was invited to that group. But yes, so again, Ohio viewings, and unfortunately, I've missed quite a few of them as well. Only May 10th have I actually seen the substorms that hit Ohio have been short and quick. So every time I would get a word of it or even look at data, I was a little too late, or it had already passed, or
yeah,
there were clouds.
because they have been seen in Ohio several times.
I want to say there's at least 4 or 5 times I remember just in August alone.
Yeah, because it was like you were saying, they're short. So you
Mhm.
have to so we can talk about the Glendale app again because you can track those substorms, and when you start getting what was the I mean, it was a good substorm, but yeah, if you see something really good happening, then you could go out and see, take a look, because a
Mhm.
lot of times it's going to be those short-lived, but very strong substorms is what you're going to catch.
Yep.
Um, yeah, because they've been seen down there several times since May.
And that's why low latitude stuff is just so difficult. So you're either going to miss, you have to be out there for the short time that the substorms and the aurora hits that time, in which case you got 10, 20 minutes at most, or you get a giant geomagnetic storm, which is going on most of the night, in which case it makes it easier because it's out for a longer period of time, usually. But I mean, in this case, a lot of Ohio's viewings have been very short, quick, choppy substorms that would flare up in the north sky and then disappear after 20 or 30 minutes. So hopefully we'll know soon. And at least, I mean, when the CMEs come, generally it's a little easier. A lot of the events we've had have been kind of shaky and not really consistent data either as far as the magnetic field is concerned. So the actual response of the magnetosphere has been hard to predict. But if we can get some at least decent hits from these CMEs and get some of the consistent magnetic field, it might be a bit easier to make this forecast sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about us doing this now, because we don't really know what's going to happen. But because there was just so much hype all on the internet all day long, we felt that it would be beneficial to kind of go over this and go over what's out there currently and kind of our thoughts on it. I know, like I said at the beginning, sometimes I get accused of being a Debbie Downer, but it's just more being realistic.
Just
Like
fact. Yeah.
I don't want to overhype something and then it turns out to be nothing. And then, it's just because that's just the nature of this. It really is. It's just how it is. The potential's there. I mean, the setup's there. It's just how it's going to unfold is to be told, and we will find out shortly. But on that note, because I noticed some people asked me about tonight, going out tonight, and I've been telling people don't like save it. I mean, there might be some transient stuff that's supposed to kind of come in because I noticed that one of the forecasts had tonight in there for like G1 or something like that. But
Tell you
I
what,
mean,
let's do this.
yeah, But
We'll
yeah,
check out solar wind data as of now.
I would wait. I would wait. If
Yeah,
you're gonna
last 24
sacrifice a
hours.
day,
I mean, we might see some Canadian border stuff, but nothing conducive right now. And the only real event I can think of coming is the first CME anyway, which is not likely until tomorrow at this point anyway. I
yeah,
would not put much stock into tonight either. No.
no, I just wouldn't. Save your energy. Save your energy for the stuff that's coming. That's all I gotta say on that. Especially, unless you don't like sleep and you just want to be up for 5 days and go for it. But yeah, save it. But we can send Tanya
Save your sleep.
the Canadian Aurora Border Patrol out to get a live view. Live from the Canadian border.
No, not again. We did that once, it's over.
Yeah, that one's over, and that one is coming in with about same strength, but not a whole lot of consistency. We had better consistency with that PC. But yeah, I we are definitely looking at something a
Yeah,
little later.
something.
Yeah.
But I would wait. I would wait this one. Catch
Yeah,
up on your sleep.
Well said. All right, any more
definitely.
questions? I'm seeing. Actually, my chat disappeared, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, let's see. I think we might have gotten them. We got the links and we appreciate you all being here for our nice little chat because we have a lot of people thanking us for the factual information. We try our best. We really do. It's hard. It's hard out there because because you have all these different things and it's all data that everybody has access to, but unless you really know how to read it or how to use it, it can get very overwhelming quickly. And you're chasing your tail because you don't know what to do with what. And so it's kind of a blessing and a curse in a way. Like it's great that we have access to all this, but you kind of have to be able to know the nuances and the pros and cons to each thing. Um, like the ground magnetometers versus the GOES magnetometer, things like that. There's just differences. We're eventually going to get into that. Because we've been asked about the difference between using
Yeah, we need to
ground
have
mags versus
a
GOES
good
and
session for that.
yeah, so that'll be when I get back from this workshop. We'll do magnetometer stuff. But yeah, yeah, it's hard, especially when none of the stuff has instructions with it.
And then you have all the nuances that are involved in them. So even if you can figure out the basics and what they actually mean, you've got all the nuances to pick out. There's no shortage of them.
Yeah. Yeah, your location dictates a lot, what you can see. If you look at this stuff enough, you can actually look and see like, okay, where I'm located, I could probably see this tonight. But it takes a lot of just observations and watching trends and this kind of stuff. It's not intuitive in today's world where everybody's like, used to having answers like this, like at your fingertips and you have all these answers and this just isn't like that. It's different. So to the frustration of a lot of people. But makes it kind of fun too.
Cool. There's another question in chat I want to address,
Uh-huh.
mostly because this is a fun one. Can we describe the instruments that measure different data, what they are, and what they measure and when? I mean, that I don't want to go into like every single detail and a lot of them, but we have two satellites technically that we look at in the L1 position, which is the 1.5 million kilometers away. That is Discover and ACE. That is where the real-time solar wind data comes from. That's where we also get all of our any sort of info about particle flux. So if we've got a wave coming in that might insinuate there's a CME on the way, all of that is there. We see the solar wind speed, temperature, its magnetic field data. And then we have most of the other stuff comes from low Earth orbit. We've got SDO, which is our imagery satellite. We've got, actually, we're going to say SOHO is in L1 as well, if I'm not mistaken. That is where LASGO comes in, our coronagraph. That is the satellite that looks at the sun and blocks out the disk so we can see CMEs coming out. So anytime you hear LASGO, C2, or C3, those are the coronagraph cams on board those satellites that allow us to see CME direction and basically whether or not they are likely to be Earth directed or not. GOES satellites are all weather satellites generally that have now some space weather operational. We get some magnetometer data on there. We're actually going to have a coronagraph on one,
That's
when
right.
Tanya, very soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, think they were promising chronographs in November, but they probably won't be operational until April of 25.
Okay. That's
Okay,
still cool.
so we got a little bit of time, but we need new ones, so that's good. So we have GOES, magnetometers, and then a lot of actually the data comes from GOES. So high energy particle flux will come from GOES. Our X-rays, anytime we're viewing those, will come from GOES. And then they also have a EUV. So they have basically looking at the sun in ultraviolet light, just the same as SDO, which is the Solar Dynamics Observatory. So we have two different sets of satellites that'll look at the sun basically 24/7 in order to see it in different wavelengths. Those are the common ones though. So SDO, ACE, Discover, GOES, and SOHO are the kind of main five that I can think of at the top of my head at least. And feel free to bring one another up if I'm forgetting
Then we
one.
have the other ones, the other missions, Solar Orbiter and Parker Solar Probe and Stereo A. We want to bring these up because this is another common thing that happens is so these are on missions and they have different orbits. So they change position. And based on their position, they can become more helpful for us or not. I mean, they're helpful in different ways. Like right now, Solar Orbiter, I think what is it on the west or east side of the sun, east far side?
It might have even moved at this point. It's pretty fast.
So you can get a view of the sun from the other side, which is helpful because then you can differentiate from the LASCO imagery, like the CMEs, if they were away or from, you can help find out different things about it. However, when people post random things on Twitter with like, oh my God, look what hit Solar Orbiter, and with no context, and then you're like, oh, is this going to be for us? It's like, no, because that's like way over there. So when you're dealing with satellites like that, you have to be careful because wherever they are at, that's going to be very, very critical information to know. So that's my little stint on those satellites. But we can piecemeal together different information for forensics, figure out what CME is hitting what and how strong some stuff was, and yeah, it's just different things. So, but yeah, those are the other ones I can think of. I don't know if we're missing other ones. Stereo
I
B
think
isn't operate. It's in a
Oh,
forever.
stereo. Yeah, I guess stereo A would probably be the
Yeah,
nice
Stereo
one.
A is the one that can right now it's staring at the west side a little bit to the left or west. So we can triangulate the way a CME is coming out better. So it's helpful in that respect. But Stereo B, which was supposed to be the other one, is in a forever spin and it's been that way for for quite some time, unfortunately.
Very morbid story.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just
Poor
a piece of
Stereo
space
B.
trash.
Sad little story about Stereo B. Um, but yeah, I think that's it on those. At least that's the ones that we're used to. Okay. So
I
yeah,
think that is all the questions I'm seeing currently. Last call for any other ones, just in case.
yeah, before we call it,
Let's see. Does phi degree have any bearing on being able to view Aurora? So I'm going to say, for simplicity's sake, technically no. It's going to be a mostly irrelevant data source. It does tell you some things about the magnetic field composition and what we're looking at, so it might give us more hints. But as far as actual Aurora viewing, it doesn't really help to look at that. No, just to be that clear on that one.
all right, that might be. Let me see. Let's see.
With you there, Les. And in fact, that's kind of what the Space Weather Live actual alerts are. So when it says CME impact detected,
Yeah.
that's a CME impact or passing ACE and Discover when an impulse hits. So that when you're getting that alert, that's exactly what that is. Now on the phone, I mean, you got if as long as you have the Space Weather Live app and you're using the alerts, you will get it. But other than that,
Yeah. You get the same alerts from the Glendale app. So if you are using it, it's going to tell you that shock is coming, shock was detected, and it will actually tell you to some degree what kind of activity you can expect based on the incoming BZ and when it's coming. So some of the magnetospheric states are harder to predict when the substorm will happen, and that's typically that SMC where you just have steady conditions and nothing is happening for a long time, and that can be maintained for a while. But for some of the substorm, it's pretty decent prediction. Like we were able to see that in Minnesota. There was a little bit of a lag, but I would rather be on location earlier than later when substorm is
absolutely,
already going. So that was nice.
yeah,
So,
couldn't agree more.
yep. Go
Yay.
Glendale. Yay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we might be able to call it, but
I think so.
this was fun. This was funny. We were on for basically an hour and we had a whole bunch of people with us, so
Yes, thank you everyone for joining.
yeah.
I know it was kind of an impromptu one. We didn't give much notice for it, and this is kind of the bigger one, but we also do these streams usually weekly. We'll bring up standard what's going on in data, and then usually we'll go off in a different tangent on a separate topic that we pick earlier. But it's been a weekly thing so far for the last couple of months. Actually, what, 3 or 4 months now? It's been going on a
Couple.
while.
Yeah, and we definitely don't have a shortage of topics to talk about.
Oh,
And then as you see, sometimes we get pulled into doing something like this, twice a week, a twice a weeker. Because
which
the
these are
sun
fun.
does,
I love the impromptu ones.
yeah.
We will not. I know there's a few people asking. We will not be able to do any more of these impromptu for the weekends, unfortunately, with Mary Beth doing her workshops. I will be updating stuff on my side, the Space Weather Trackers page. I'm going to be keeping up to date. I'll probably end up posting to my personal page as well, but there won't be another stream this weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah,
No.
it'll be next weekend. We'll be back. So, but yeah, this was good timing. So it's good to have everybody here and if anybody's going out to chase, have fun. This should be exciting. I mean, I'm a little excited about it, in case you couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
we'll see if we can get some low latitude Aurora going. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I love it when the sun wakes up
Hopefully.
screaming in the morning.
We we
Ah!
should we should just go ahead and just close with that, honestly.
Yeah. Like the sun is screaming.
Do you still have the video up?
I don't. I got rid of it. Sorry.
All
But
right, well, no, that's okay.
yeah.
I'd say let's go ahead and close, and I'm going to just play that video on repeat
Yeah.
until we
Play
close. How
it.
about that?
Yeah,
That'll
bring it up.
scare everybody
Because
off now.
your screen's still sharing, so you can bring it up.
Oh, that's true. Oh, there it is. All right, well,
Yeah.
everyone enjoy
We
what the sun has been doing the last several hours.
yeah, right here. This is it right here. It's just screaming away. It's just screaming away.
It finally came down. We are at R0. Yay.
Ah, we're below M class now. Good.
Yep, we are.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks guys. We appreciate you being here. And thanks for all the questions and hopefully we got some of them answered. We probably did a lot of runaround answers, but you know, it is
It's
what it
okay. Not a
is.
lot of time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we'll try to cover some of the questions in follow-up sessions. So I really like the questions that have been put in chat, and they could easily make one of the regular weekly
Yeah.
topics. So
Yep.
thank you so much for posting them. We do look at them and we'll make a plan.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you for
Well.
listening and
Yeah,
watching.
thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
And
Enjoy your
until
evening.
and until later, have a good night.